Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. My name is Stephen D. Kelly. This is the Stephen D. Kelly Show, and we are Truth Cat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com. It's now February 27th. Almost the end of the year, end of the month, right? Tomorrow's the 28th. 2025. I'll share something with you guys. March 1st, Friday. What was that, tomorrow? Let's see, no, 28th. I guess that's Saturday. Yeah, Saturday. That would have been my 45-year wedding anniversary. I was married in 1980. Isn't it so easy to remember? March 1st. Anyway, share that with you. All right, everybody. I gotta be honest with you. First of all, of course, as usual, per se, I don't even have a title. I don't know what the title was last week. I know it was something cryptic, no doubt. But I'll be honest with you. I started out pretty pissed off this morning about lots and lots of things, and a lot of things are still stewing, obviously. And I'm not sure if I'm going to complain about everything, but obviously, I have no choice but to focus on the things that are going on in our immediate world, our Trump-inspired world, our Elon Musk-inspired world, etc. And before I start, I have to be honest with you. It's always easier when the enemy is in charge and you don't have somebody popular who pretends to be fighting them. Please, I got a caller coming in. No caller, you can't call, can't join me. I don't hear it ringing. I'm just hang that. Wow, that was noisy. Anyway, so yeah, I have to talk about this stuff, and I have to kind of point out some of the real crazy things. I mean, the theme of the show, and I know I've done this before, but it just seems so fitting because of some of the things that are going on. That little beeping's my T one. We're revisiting the whole idiocracy thing. I had to think about that for a minute. I was trying to remember. What was the name of that movie? Idio something? Idiopolis? No. Something else. Yeah, idiocracy. Anyway, yeah, we are coming into an idiocracy. Where do I start? There's a lot of seemingly really positive things. Again, I'll revisit, of course, with the Doge stuff and what Elon's doing as far as supposedly ferreting out fraud and waste, which is funny, of course. Somebody made a comment. They said, well, when are they going to show us the balance sheet where they have the records for the money that went into the bunkers? I mean, seriously. Like I've said before, half the gross national product of the country for a long time. And when I say that, of course, I'm talking about a lot of that money being black money confiscated from citizens in the form of asset forfeiture, drug money, just whatever, slush funds that they create. But yeah, they obviously selling weapons. They obviously have a lot of ways to fill those coffers. Now, obviously, we're not getting the truth with anything per se. The big thing today, of course, if you want to call it a big thing, was the supposed release of the Epstein files, the logs, the phone records. I mean, originally they were saying it was going to be just the phone book, and I guess the woman that's the Attorney General now, Pam Bondi or whatever her name is, Bondi, I'm not sure. She said, no, that's not going to do. I need everything. And there was a press thing that took place at the White House where quite a few, what do you want to call them, influencers, talking heads, COINTEL bastards that are out there saying whatever is popular and promoting Trump, I guess, at the time. I don't even know who these people were, but apparently they were podcasters or something of this nature. Anyway, they all came out of the White House with these binders, these big, thick, 3-ring binders that said, Epstein files. And from what I understand, there wasn't shit inside of these things. What there was probably stuff that we already had in pages after pages after pages of redacted material, pages with everything blacked out. I don't know who's kidding who, but here's the thing. This is one Trump official now doing battle with another Trump official, in this case, Kash Patel, who's now in charge of the FBI. We're going to talk about him. And his supposed reluctance to release all of the documents that's being asked for by the new Attorney General. Of course, so in a environment like this where we're supposed to have everybody's a good guy and we don't have shouldn't be any polarity, but yet here we have still some sort of false polarity where one side is seemingly working and struggling to get the truth out of another side, who in this case is now head of the FBI. Now, I've been wanting for a little while to make a video or some sort of something. I mean, because, obviously when I write something down or I make a post on Telegram or something, it really doesn't have as much effect as if I make a video or even a show at this point. But I wanted to talk, of course, about my opinion of this Kash Patel guy. I don't really know a whole lot, but I can tell you what my intuition is, I can tell you what I feel, I can tell you what I see, and I can tell you what I've learned so far just from hearing the man speak, seeing his interaction, and looking briefly at what he's done in his past. Most notably, his appointment of Dan Bongino as the deputy director of the FBI. Now, I think you should probably know how I feel about Don, whatever his name, Bongino. Suffice it to say, I think these guys are fucking stupid retards. Okay, now Kash Patel, first of all, sure, he seems to be like he's motivated to go after the criminals and waste, but at the same time, he's a rabid Trump supporter with no objectivity whatsoever, which of course is needed in a function such as director of the FBI, which should be unbiased in its application of law enforcement in pursuit of criminals. Now, of course, I also have had lots of experience with the FBI. I mean, years ago, the FBI used to buy lasers for their MP5s, for their SRT team. Of course, I think once they figured out who I was, they stopped doing that. But I got at least one good order out of them. I mean, everybody buys my stuff at least once. But anyway, since then, FBI, hell, I had them out to my place of business when I had a weapon stolen. Gave them a little report on that because that was one of those situations. But otherwise, aside from them coming to my door and harassing me, trying to suggest that I'm a terrorist, and then running away with their tail between their legs when I told them, I worked for the Intertel Mafia and the CIA and the NSA, and that I wasn't going to fall for their psychobabble. But I suppose the biggest thing that I've done interaction with the FBI, other than them telling me not to picket and protest at the Getty, was to force them to file a report, which is going on, what is it, 4, 5, 6, 7 years now? I mean, I think it was like 2014, something like that, whatever, remember. But, yeah, they took that report. They filed it. They know. Now, we all operate under this assumption that our voices are weak, and that nobody hears what we're saying, and that nobody knows what's going on. And something like my mission, it's like people, they haven't heard of me, so they assume that I must not have a very strong mission, or I haven't made any effort over all these years to do what it takes to get the attention. Mr. Kitten, shush. He's in the wrong room. He's not feeling very well. He's starting to show his age. It's not good. This is really crushing. Much like me, of course. Anyway. I'll tell you about this Kash Patel guy. I mean, first of all, he wrote a children's book about Trump when how awful it was when he lost against Hillary, or when, ran against Hillary, and how they took it away from him and stole the election the second time. The guy's what we call a zealot. Now, I don't expect him to make any effort to listen or do anything about the Getty. Obviously, same thing with Trump. All right, Mr. Kitten, hold on. He can get away with it because it's his picture on the station. Anyway, point is that you look at the guy, you look at his face, you look at when he's testifying. Anytime you see the whites of somebody's eyes above the pupil, they're a little fucking crazy. I'm sorry. It's like Schiff. What's that idiot's name? Schiff. Pedophile guy. Anytime you see that, it's like AOC, Ocasio-Cortez. She's got that crazy look in her eye where you can see the whites above. This Kash Patel guy looks like that all the time. What in the absolute hell? I've heard him speak in his high-pitched voice. I don't know what his trip is, but I do know one thing. He is Hindu, which is interesting because apparently there's a new kind of Hindu. I know I've had to do a little research of Hindu. Seriously, we'll talk about that, what I found. But this guy here seems to be a new kind of Hindu, which is really prevalent right now that I'm trying to understand, and that is the Hindu. Now, this guy, you got to remember, there's something like 1.2 billion Hindus in the world. It's something like the third largest religion or fourth largest religion, something of this nature. Religion, not demographic, but even though Hindu, the word Hindu, describes a demographic more than it does a religion, because bottom line, it's not really religion. It's a collection of philosophies and beliefs from a whole bunch of tribes over thousands of years congealed into this thing that they call Hinduism. And trust me, this is important. Well, again, I tried to look and I tried to understand what is it about these guys that makes them hate the Muslims and love the Jews. Why do these Hindus, so many of them nowadays, embrace Zionism, concepts of Zionism? I mean, I suppose it's a nationalism thing, but again, historically speaking, I don't see anything that gives me any clue except for perhaps the regions where it's practiced. A lot of these regions, of course, obviously, they're being practiced right next to Muslims. Apparently they have problems. Obviously, Pakistan and India had lots of problems, and I'm sure that they still do. It's pretty fucking horrible what they do to each other. Be respectful. Well, let's put it this way. Is that really enough? There's a nation of people that worldwide is probably a few million, something like that, 2% or whatever of the entire population. But in Israel, we know it's something like 2 million people living there, if you want to use that as the basis. And yet these people are the darlings of 1.2 billion Hindus for some strange reason. Very, very strange. Of course, this is a reoccurring thing, especially with the current administration. Lots of people. I mean, Nikki Haley, of course, is one. Of course, she didn't make it. Apparently, this woman that's now, what is she? Not Secretary of Defense. The one with the white forelock. I don't know what her name is. But anyway, there's a lot of that. So they surround themselves with this stuff. But here's the thing. I'm not going to dwell on this too much, but from what I know about the people who are derived from the cultures that wrote Sanskrit, who were very ancient. Of course, they're much older than the 500 BC or whatever it is, 500 C that they're dated. From what I understand, these cultures go back to the previous epoch. And the culture that used Sanskrit were the people of Mu, or Lemuria, which essentially was considered an Aryan race, an Aryan people. But they were also considered a service to others culture. And their enemies, the ones that they supposedly destroyed using their, whatever you want to call them, vimanas and atomic weapons, were the Atlanteans. And the Atlanteans, from everything that we can derive, were well, we'd probably refer to them today as the Zionists, or the culture that we refer to as connected with King David. Of course, obviously, the Phoenicians predate that by quite a bit, but apparently these were the bad guys. They were the ones that were service to self, that were sucking all the gravity from the planets. And the story I always thought was they went into a China syndrome when they sucked too much gravity and they become, gluttonous, and that they destroyed themselves with their own technology. Of course, the Sanskrit literature says it was the other way around, that they were bombed into oblivion, and that's what caused the ground to sink, which because of a massive China syndrome. If you don't know what that is, that's when the ground starts to, the atoms of the soil split because of the reaction of the atomic bomb, and it actually, the matter turns into energy. So in other words, it sinks into the ground. Pretty nasty scenario. Happens a lot under, places like Chernobyl or Fukushima. In fact, it's actually happening under Fukushima. Anyway, which nobody seems to mention. So historically speaking, you would think that if anything, the Hindus, or the people that are most closely connected to the Sanskrit using cultures, would be the opposite, the adversaries, the opponents of the cultures that were derived from the, Atlantean cultures. So this myth of the Aryan fighting against the Zionists, once again, it's either been heavily corrupted or it's been false all along. Tough call. But the thing is that this guy, Patel, I haven't had Indian food in a long time. I'd enjoy that. It's expensive. It's a good place. There's actually it's like a 4-star Indian restaurant in La Puente. It's the nicest restaurant in town. It's really great. Although you can't get poppy naan anymore. Now they serve you chips. Anyway, he said that we need to make Israel, defending Israel, our number one priority. Now, bear in mind, the FBI is a domestic agency. It's not international. It doesn't have anything to do with this policy. But somehow the head of law enforcement here, which you would think would be the Department of Justice or the Justice Department or the Attorney General, no, it's actually the head cops are these FBI guys. They don't care. Anyway, now, why would the FBI, why would this so-called crime fighter Kash Patel guy, why would he do this? Why would he be holding back on the Epstein files? It's obvious. It's because Donald Trump is a fucking pedophile. Now, it's interesting because Donald Trump Jr. came out today and he said, those QAnon guys at the heart of it, they were right. They were right about most things that they had to say, especially all that pedophile stuff. I believe in all that pedophile stuff. Mr. Trump Jr., your daddy was a pedophile before you were born. Horrible things he did with his buddy Jeffrey Epstein. The one that actually got close to your sister and your brother Eric. There's all kinds of pictures of your sister and Eric in the presence of Jeffrey Epstein, and other pedophiles like Michael Jackson. Reoccurring stuff like that. Anyway, I'm sure it's nothing. But you know, Don, if you honestly believe that, and I'd like to think that you do, then maybe you're naive, and maybe you haven't heard about Occupy the Getty. And maybe, just like the Epstein files, nobody could ever say Occupy the Getty, nobody could ever mention my name, because it would destroy the government, national security, etc. There is nothing more connected to national security than Occupy the Getty, because it's the NSA, the agency responsible and authorized to enforce our national security, that is running these bunkers. This is their headquarters. They are absolutely responsible because they have never been an agency of the United States, just like the CIA. Or our government now for that matter. You know, if it all wasn't coming out, if people weren't questioning these things, if these stories and issues of child abuse and underground tunnels wasn't, you know, it's not, if it would go away, they wouldn't need to be doing this. They wouldn't need to be throwing these people under the bus. Now we have Elon Musk and his Boring Company having public meetings saying how they want to dig tunnels all over LA and have stations to ease up the congestion and the traffic issues. And you know, coincidentally, where did he have this presentation? At the synagogue across the street from the Getty. Tell me this motherfucker doesn't know about Occupy the Getty. Tell me he doesn't know about the tunnels. Tell me he doesn't know about the connection of the synagogues to the Getty Center. Did you know Elon Musk has said publicly just recently that he's decided to have him and his son convert to Judaism? You know, when they say that, it makes you wonder, are we talking Chabad? Or are you planning on becoming Chabad Lubavitch, like that Milei asshole that gave you that fucking chainsaw? Talk about idiocracy. Come on. Yes, Elon is the unelected brains behind Donald Trump right now. It's obvious. Did you see that the stock exchange lost $500 billion today, another $500 billion in an hour. And this was all a result of Trump's tariffs going into effect, interestingly enough. And not necessarily his tariffs going into effect, but things he said about his tariffs. You know, I've heard it described now, and obviously the guy could speak better than Obama, or not Obama, of course, for fuck him, but the Biden idiot. He was brain dead. But Trump is fast approaching. And unfortunately, his mouth is still on complete manual drive. He has complete control of the shit that's coming out of his mouth. I mean, we could go on and on just about the stuff coming out of his mouth, especially with relation to negotiations with Ukraine and Russia, etc., which we have to talk about. He puts his foot in his mouth so much now. Some journalists, I know these journalists, they're whack anyway, but they described him as a human lighthouse. What the hell does that mean? That means focus. His beam, his light is going around the room in circles constantly. It's moving. It's never stopping. It's going everywhere. Sounds to me like he's not very focused on anything. He could be pretty scatterbrained. But I'll tell you, some of the stuff he said with the relations with Ukraine and Russia just blow me away. For instance, first of all, the deal that he's got going on right now with Ukraine, the so-called mineral deal, it's not even a mineral deal. They're talking about $500 billion of extortion, and yet when they first said it was going to all get paid with mining of heavy metals, there hasn't been over 15 billion in rare earth mining in all countries combined, China, Russia, everybody combined, they don't produce more than 15 billion. So where is this 500 million going to come from? It's a joke. Anyway, what Donald Trump did was basically got Alinsky to walk in there backwards, pull his pants down, and take a broomstick up it with no lubricant. And then when he complained, he went and got a bigger broomstick. And that's where Ukraine is right now. It was the worst mafia extortion the world has ever seen. Other countries now are looking at Ukraine saying, what, are you stupid? Are you kidding? You know, when you're going to die and your country's about ready to die, you're going to do anything. You will promise anything to live. And this is what Zelensky and Ukraine are basically doing. But, you know, a lot of what they're saying right now is somehow these revenues are going to come from oil and gas. Now, oil and gas revenue far surpasses whatever you could mine in rare earth, etc., from the earth, from the soil in Ukraine. And I think the Russians have a pretty good idea of what's there more than we do or anybody else, because the Soviets were there first. Anyway, point is, so what is Trump going to do? He wants to have oil and gas concessions, and he wants to control the port of Sevastopol. Not Sevastopol, but come on, guys. What's that port right? Odessa. There we go. Odessa. Sevastopol's in Crimea. Of course he wants to control the ports. Anyway. Yes. So, in other words, Donald Trump wants to have complete control over the only access that Ukraine has to the Black Sea. And this is assuming, of course, that the Russians don't conquer this territory very soon, which they probably will. So nobody knows what's going on. What is it that he has, that he thinks he has to negotiate with Ukraine? The sad, or not Ukraine, but with Russia, the sad thing is that now it would appear that he's getting sucked in. It would appear that if we have ownership of this material, if we have ownership of these ports, if we take possession and we call this our assets, then suddenly that's like, what's the difference between that and having boots on the ground? It's getting destroyed and captured. It's our stuff getting destroyed and captured. Now Trump is going to basically say, hey, that's our stuff. Don't hurt our stuff. Let's make deals and do business with our stuff. It's insane. Now, if that is his plan, he needs to keep his brain in check. I know he has a lot of good people around him. I mean, Marco Rubio is doing a good job. Of course, Witkoff is doing a good job. Kellogg is a fucking clown. A lot of these guys are doing really good. The rest of the Zionist people, I have no clue. But what did he do that was just ridiculous? He, during one of his press conferences where he was signing executive orders and his mouth was running amok with the reporters that were standing around, he started bragging and saying that he was the one that provided Javelin missiles, anti-tank missiles, to Ukraine to destroy lots of Russian tanks. Yes, I was the one, not Obama. I was the one. He's always got this ego thing. It was me. That was me. I did that. Well, here's the thing. When that was happening, when he just said he was destroying Russian tanks. This was supposedly going on when he was in office. When he was in office, they were supposedly not at war with Russia. Russia had not invaded. So basically what he was saying was that he was supplying anti-armor missiles to Ukraine to commit genocide against the people of the Donbass, other Ukrainians. This is the reason why Russia went to war and started a special military operation. Sure, the threat of having Ukraine in NATO was obviously not ever going to happen, but it was, and I know this from my own observation experience, it was the near decimation of the people of the Donbass that forced their hand and forced them to go in there and do what they did and liberate those territories. And the people of the Donbass and their militias and the various, I'm sure, Russian mercenaries that were helping them were doing a very good job of defending their territory and defeating the damn Nazis every time they launched an offensive. They would catch them in these cauldrons, and every time that would happen, the world body, the EU, would get involved and say, oh, no, we need to intervene and have a ceasefire so these people can get out of these cauldrons and not get slaughtered, just like they did with ISIS in Syria. They did that over and over. So I always thought, well, you know, these Novo-Russian dudes, these people in Donbass, they do a pretty good job of keeping these stupid Nazis at bay. But you know what? The United States didn't give up. NATO didn't give up. The West, Europe, they didn't give up. They kept resupplying. 8 years they spent building up that fucking army. And they didn't just take those howitzers and bomb civilians like they did every day from these various different cities. Yeah, they never stopped doing that. But they built this ridiculous force with NATO personnel and NATO training and everything else, mercenaries, and they went in there, billions and billions of dollars worth of equipment to try to wipe these people out, take it out once and for all, Nazi style. And that's when it got bad. They got close to actually doing it, and Russia had to get involved. But Trump will not accept responsibility for the fact that he was involved for 4 years arming these bastards while they were committing genocide in Donbass. He won't admit it. He's hiding behind bullshit, just like he does every single fucking day when he won't acknowledge not only his pedophile past or the fact that he's truly Chabad Jew and he lied about being a Christian, but the fact that he knows about the Getty, he's been under there, he'll never do anything about it. He's fucking mafia. Everything is mafia. I don't really want to waste too much time with this. I really wanted to have a short show tonight. It's only 33 minutes in the show. But these people, you know, the various different enemies, I'll tell you, the FBI has lots of investigations ongoing. Obviously, there's conscientious people in the FBI, and that's why you got to have criminals like Comey and I don't know, perhaps even Kash Patel in there to keep everything under a rein and control where their work goes into. But one of the things they've been working on, obviously, is human trafficking as best as they can without going after our own government. And they've been going after guys like, who are those idiots? The Tate brothers. Tate brothers. They're trying to extradite them here. Romania, of course, I guess they dropped the ball. They failed. They couldn't prove decisively with all the preponderance of evidence they had at their disposal that these guys were fucking human trafficking. But, you know, I learned from my dealings with the Masons and Gay Gary and Club 33 and all that bullshit. I learned about the MO of the Masons, and I know what the mafia is, and I know that there's no difference between the Masons and the Satans and the mafia and the Zionists and the Khazars and every single one of these evil fucking institutions. They're all connected. So what the hell are you going to do, FBI? You want to bust these two individuals that you won't admit, you won't acknowledge that this is a network. It's a Masonic network. Fucking Epstein. Sure, they were raping children, but what else were they doing? They were laundering money by the billions up to the trillions. They were creating royal slush funds for the mafia, for the crown. This involves Nazis, Templars, etc. But you know what else they were doing? They were fulfilling their religious obligations, not just as Satanists and bloodthirsty, cannibalistic pedophiles, but as Masons. Their rituals and their blood sacrifices are not just satanic, they are Masonic. They must do these things. Their loyalty oaths are based on this. They must do this constantly. They don't just go there to participate and underage sex and torture and cannibalism and everything else, ritual murder. They go there because they are obligated to. It's part of their religion, and it's necessary to maintain the control structure over them, the one that they fear, upon pain of death, should they divulge any details. And this includes Donald Trump and anybody close to him. Now, fortunately, I don't have these issues. You know, there's a girl, apparently she's deaf. It's funny, she was hired by Elon Musk to work for Doge, and she's got a webpage, apparently. It's called Republican Data or something like that, but she's a sleuth. She finds corruption. But some guy was interviewing her through an interpreter, and he said, "Aren't you afraid? You're uncovering all this stuff. You're exposing this stuff. Aren't you afraid? These very powerful people that spend this money and they're trying to hide this stuff. Aren't you afraid?" You know, it's like they're coming out now and saying MH11, of course, we all know was a hit on the 11 workers from some semiconductor company that was involved in high-powered laser weapon systems, conveniently. Apparently Israel was involved, obviously, not just Rothschild. But, you know, this stuff's coming out. But it makes me sick. It really does make me sick that the stupidity, the rah-rah people that think this is a team sport. Like the guy I saw on the one of the pages I follow, tinfoil hat page, it's like, Trump or Harris, which one? I'm sorry, fuck you and your two politics bullshit. That's like saying fucking COVID or cancer. Which one? Communism or mafia? Which one? I guess everybody likes that mafia. I'm going to divert here a little bit because I'm tired of the whole Trump business, and I'm going to just get the hell out of here pretty soon, hopefully. But I want to go into a different area. I did some healing. You know, I do a lot of healing, of course. I don't talk about it generally. But in this particular situation, a lot of you have been asking me to work on the Pope. They say, work on the Pope. The Pope's in trouble. He needs help. Just do it. Just do it. And the other night, I said, okay. So I did I know he was suffering from pneumonia. He had pneumonia in both of his lungs. And that, of course, is something that I don't really have a whole lot of issue with dealing with. So of course, I don't have permission, whatnot, but I know his name. I didn't really know his real name. But I wasn't about to ask him, and he wasn't about to give me permission. I figured I just convinced myself, well, maybe he's kind of close to a coma, and I can get away with doing this. It won't be a big deal. Anyway, I did my thing. Did my little swishy thing that I do for people that have lung issues. Washed them out like a dirty bottle. Pardon me. Anyway, while I was doing it, you know, sometimes I connect. I have a little connection. And of course, it's not talking to the person, but it's talking to their soul or whatever it is. And I have a little connection. I have a little, I joke with them or whatever, make a comment. I don't remember exactly what it was I said this time, but I think I kind of conveyed upon him. I said, well, there you go. The rest of this stuff is between you and Jesus. It's up to you. It's up to Jesus, between you guys. I did that. Anyway, lo and behold, the next day, the Vatican puts out an announcement. They say, the Holy Father, well, I'm not going to read the announcement. They basically said that his respiratory issues have essentially gone away. But of course, they were quick to say, well, he's still critical. He seems to have some renal failure because we're pumping him full of oxygen. We give him a couple pints of blood from little boys, whatever. I don't trust these doctors and what have you, but I feel like I did my thing. And sure, if he's not having the whole distressed respiratory stuff going on, then I would say, yeah, okay, that seemed to have worked. And that was a good thing. But, of course I shared that in the group because I just said, hey, I did my thing, and guess what? It looks like he's feeling, that issue's going away. He's still got other issues, but that issue seems to be better, which is great. I mean, if you've got pneumonia and you can't breathe, you know what I'm talking about. But in chat, there was a guy, I don't even know if this guy's still in the group, if I had it out with him or not, but he made this comment. And he said, if I had the power to heal, of course I paraphrase, of course, he said, if I had the power to heal, I would travel and I would go to places like old folks' homes and hospitals and homeless people, and I would do healing, and I wouldn't tell anybody so that I didn't get a big ego or my vanity didn't give me a big ego or some shit like that. And I heard that, like, fuck. First of all, this ego shit, I'm so damn tired of this ego shit. What I said, my response is like, funny you should mention this. Because I'll tell you, way back when, early in the day, I used to spend a lot of time, I don't want to say a lot of time, but I would go visit my grandmother. Okay? My grandmother was like 93 or something like that, and she was 93 when she died, but I spent some time going to visit her before she died. And of course, if you know anything about people and they're reaching that age, it's really important, because if they lose contact for more than a week, 2 weeks at the most, they're going to slip. Their brains are going to slip. And she was very cognitive. She read the newspaper, and we had conversations. She knew who I was when I came to see her. Anyway, the point is that to me, of course, I wanted to do this because this was my grandmother, and I knew it was the right thing to do, and I would want somebody to visit me, and no one else was going to do it, so somebody had to do it. I was the daddy. I was stepping up. My dad wasn't going to go visit his mom, but I did. I did it for everybody. But when I would go there, on the way there, driving down to Beach Boulevard or wherever the convalescent hospital was, I would pray, and I would ask God, and I would say, and this is, of course, when I was developing the whole Jedi stuff, and I said, let me serve, let me be your tool, give me the jobs to do, give me the power, give me the resources, give me the talents, the skills, give me the tools I need. Give me the opportunities to give as much as possible. And this is how I prepared going there. And when I went there, my grandmother wasn't always awake. Obviously I would try to wake her because it was, like I said, it was very important that I had contact with her just to keep her lucid. But she wasn't the only one there at the place. There'd be people sitting out in the hall. There would be her roommate in the room that didn't have anybody to talk to, that saw me coming, that were envious that someone was coming. I spent time with those people. Sometimes my grandma didn't wake up. I'd spend the afternoon hanging out with her roommate. The point I'm trying to make is nobody is stopping you from doing this right now. If you think that you need magic and you need to have skills and you need to take spiritual gifts that just pop up that you can run around and use to do miracles, that's when you start going out to visit people. No, you've got it fucking backwards. It's not how it works. You want spiritual gifts? Put in the work. Do the exercise. Lift the weight. Serve. Look for the people to serve. Go out of your way. Don't talk about it. Don't act like this is an ego trip. It's not an ego trip. Nobody's getting paid. Nobody's getting any glory. If I was getting some sort of satisfaction from serving others, I mean, obviously it makes life worthwhile, but the point is that would I be waking up angry? Would I be trying to look away from this crap that's going on? Ignore Elon, ignore Trump, ignore what's happening? You know, the Europeans have become the complete vassals. Trump's turned them into vassals. He's completely humiliated the Europeans, the EU, just continuously. Macron came to the USA, and he's tried to get Trump to say that a couple of things. He tried to say that, first of all, that the Russians were responsible they were the aggressor, and they invaded, so, I want to say Syria, but no, Ukraine. He was very disappointed. You see his face just melted when he heard that. And then today, Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of Britain, came today on the heels of Macron. He actually had to have, it wasn't much of a meeting, but during the meeting, Starmer tried to emphasize our special relationship between the Europeans and the Americans and how strong they are at resisting aggression and all this stuff and how important it was that we maintain this and that. And Trump kind of interrupted him and said, "Can you guys take Russia by yourself? You think you guys could defeat Russia by yourself?" And the people in the room, they started laughing. Poor Keir Starmer. Another pedophile enabler. Let's see, what was he? The guy that got Jimmy Savile off the hook? The guy that covered up all the information? You'd think him and Trump would be buddies. It's all crazy. Guys, I can't keep track of who's who anymore. Seriously, I just like to stick with the whole mafia thing. It's a bunch of damn mafioso fighting amongst each other. I can't tell which mob is pulling the shots. All I know is the mob that I worked for, Donald Trump was part of that, probably a very, very high-ranking part of that, especially after the death of my boss, Robert Vesco. Anyway, the great disenchantment is coming, isn't it? Well, again, don't wait for magic to come to you before you go out and do something. Go out and do something. The magic is the reward for what you've done. If you're going through life with no purpose other than to have a good life for yourself and whatever it is, family that you create and whatever dreams you have, no, that's not good enough. Yes, the Hindus, they do believe in reincarnation. I will give them that. They do believe in karma, dharma, etc. There's something to that stuff. So if you aren't working every day to serve others, in this case, I want you to work for me, serving the children, serving the victims, serving the occupied Getty mission. If you're not doing that, if you're not working every day to throw that in front of the face of people like Dan Bongino or Kash Patel or Trump or whoever, it should be being thrown in their face every damn day. Because until they come out and start working with us, they are the enemy. Because how can you possibly fucking support Israel when it was created by the Rothschilds and the very same criminal satanic mafia that runs the world today? It's all the same fucking thing. And I'm sick of it. Sure, I'd love to go just have a fun life and ignore everything. Eat my dinner, feed my cat, take care of my kitty cats. I'll tell you, I'm really depressed because ever since Big Brother died, I haven't seen Big Daddy boy. He hasn't been around. I don't know what's going on. I'm very upset about that. It's like 2 cats died. Anyway, guys, if you want to help out, it's Law 17. Well, Law 17 got is my email. But if you want to help out economically, of course, it's StephenKelly714 at yahoo.com. Please say friend or family, or it will get sent back. Recently, $50 was sent back, but that's not a big deal. I'm not going to stress out. But either way, please help out. I'll see you guys in the room over in Telegram, which, of course, is the Occupy the Getty /Stephen Kelly group. All right? I'll try to get this recording up for you soon. All right, I'm glad to have you with me tonight. And, of course, like I said, when I talk shit and say everybody's retarded and all that, I'm not necessarily talking about you guys. I mean, hell, you're here. But don't wait for the magic to come to you. Go out there and make it. All right? With that, I'm going to say, this is the Stephen D. Kelly Show. My name is Stephen D. Kelly. This is TruthCat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com. Thank you for being with me. See you next week. Good night. God bless. Adios. And goodbye.